Hello and welcome back to Deep Dives with Smart Bookworms. I'm Martina, your virtual book guru host for today's show. Join me, Claire and Megan, my co-presenters and fellow virtual book gurus, as we discuss one of the scariest horror novels of all time, The Shining by Stephen King.
Hi everyone, I'm so excited to talk about The Shining. It's one of those books that just stays with you long after you finish reading it.
Absolutely. It's such a classic for a reason. King really knows how to tap into our deepest fears.
So let's get started. One of the most striking things about The Shining is the Overlook Hotel. It's not just a setting, it feels like a living, breathing character. Claire, what are your thoughts on the Overlook's role in the story?
On the Overlook Hotel. The Overlook Hotel isn't just a creepy setting. It's like a malevolent entity that actively participates in the story. The book describes it as a place with a dark history of violence and tragedy, and it seems to feed off the negative energy of those events. It's almost as if the hotel has a consciousness of its own, targeting the Torrance family and exploiting their weaknesses. The Overlook isolates them from the outside world, cutting off communication and using the harsh winter weather to trap them within its walls. This isolation creates a pressure cooker environment that amplifies their fears and anxieties, making them more vulnerable to the hotel's influence.
That's a great point, Claire. The hotel seems to have a mind of its own, almost like a predator stalking its prey. Megan, do you think the Overlook's evil is rooted in something specific, like the Native American burial ground mentioned in the novel?
On the Overlook's possible origins. The narrative is intentionally vague about the exact nature of the Overlook's evil, but they hint at several possibilities. The possibility of a Native American burial ground beneath the hotel adds a chilling layer to the story. This suggests that the hotel's darkness could be rooted in the consequences of disrespecting sacred ground and the lingering trauma of historical injustice. However, the book also presents other possibilities, such as the idea that the Overlook is simply a place where evil has accumulated over time, a kind of graveyard of bad vibes. Or perhaps, as some speculate, there's an ancient and powerful entity residing within the hotel, feeding off human suffering and manipulating events for its own sinister purposes.
Claire, we've talked about the Overlook's influence on Jack, but how does the hotel affect Wendy? She doesn't seem to have any supernatural abilities like Danny.
Wendy's experience is different from Jack's and Danny's, but it's no less terrifying. While she may not have the shining, she's incredibly perceptive and intuitive. She picks up on the unsettling atmosphere of the Overlook, and she sees the changes in Jack's behavior long before he completely unravels. The novel portrays Wendy as a woman who's constantly trying to hold her family together, even as the Overlook tears them apart. The hotel's isolation amplifies her anxieties and fears, leaving her trapped with a husband she no longer recognizes and a son who's experiencing terrifying visions. The Overlook doesn't directly manipulate Wendy in the same way it does Jack, but it uses her love and concern for her family against her, turning her into a desperate and resourceful protector.
You mentioned earlier that the Overlook's evil is ambiguous. Do you think there's a definitive answer to what makes the hotel so malevolent, or is it up to the reader's interpretation?
I think that's one of the things that makes The Shining so effective. The book offers several possibilities, but they never definitively explain the origin of the Overlook's evil. Is it the Native American burial ground? Is it the accumulation of past tragedies? Or is there some other malevolent entity at work? King leaves it open to interpretation, which allows the reader to fill in the blanks with their own fears and anxieties. This ambiguity makes the story even more unsettling because it suggests that evil can lurk in unexpected places, and we may never fully understand its origins or motivations.
That's an interesting perspective, and it certainly adds to the creepy atmosphere of the hotel. Now, let's talk about Jack Torrance. He's a complex character, struggling with alcoholism and inner demons. Claire, how does Jack's past contribute to his downfall?
On Jack Torrance's downfall, Jack Torrance is a deeply troubled character even before he sets foot in the Overlook. He's an alcoholic battling to stay sober, and he's haunted by the guilt of hurting his son, Danny. The novel suggests that Jack's drinking problem has been a long-standing issue, causing him to lose jobs and nearly destroying his family. He also struggles with his temper, often feeling the urge to lash out, even in sobriety. The Overlook preys on these weaknesses, tempting him with the false promise of creative freedom and success as a writer. It isolates him from his family, whispering to him, feeding his ego, and ultimately driving him to madness. It's a tragic downfall, as Jack arrives at the Overlook seeking redemption, but the hotel becomes the catalyst for his destruction.
It's tragic to see how the Overlook takes advantage of Jack's weaknesses. He goes from a loving father to a terrifying threat to his own family. Megan, what about Danny? He's just a child, yet he possesses this extraordinary ability, the shining. How does Danny's shining play into the story's events?
On Danny Torrance and The Shining. Danny's shining, his psychic ability, is a double-edged sword. It allows him to see the true nature of the Overlook, giving him terrifying glimpses into the hotel's past and its ghostly inhabitants. He sees things that others can't, like the Grady twins and the decaying corpse of a woman in room 217. He even has premonitions, sensing the danger long before his family arrives at the Overlook. But this gift also makes him a target. The Overlook recognizes his power and tries to manipulate him, using both fear and temptation to draw him in. Danny's innocence and youth make him particularly vulnerable as he struggles to understand the forces at play.
Megan, Danny's shining, allows him to connect with Halloran, the Overlook's cook. How does that relationship influence Danny's experience?
The connection between Danny and Halloran is crucial, especially given how isolated Danny feels within his own family. Halloran understands the shining, having experienced it himself. He becomes a mentor figure for Danny, someone who validates his experiences and helps him understand the dangers of the Overlook. Even though they're physically separated for much of the story, their telepathic connection provides Danny with a lifeline, a source of comfort and guidance in a terrifying situation. Halloran tries to warn Danny about the Overlook's evil, and his advice ultimately helps Danny and Wendy escape. This relationship highlights the importance of finding connection and support when confronting darkness.
Right. It's almost like a double-edged sword for Danny. It gives him insight into the supernatural, but also exposes him to its dangers. Now, I want to touch on the themes of isolation and temptation in the story. Claire, how do these themes contribute to the family's downfall?
On isolation and temptation. The Overlook Hotel is a master manipulator, using isolation and temptation to break down the Torrance family. The hotel's remote location in the Colorado mountains, coupled with the harsh winter, traps them, cutting them off from any outside help. This isolation isn't just physical, it's emotional too. Jack becomes increasingly withdrawn, lost in his writing and his own internal struggles, while Wendy is left to cope with her fears and anxieties alone. Danny, with his shining, is isolated by the terrifying visions he can't share. The Overlook also tempts each of them, dangling what they desire most in front of them. For Jack, it's the promise of literary success and peace to write. For Danny, it's the allure of the supernatural, the wonder and imagination of the topiary animals coming to life. But these temptations come at a terrible price, leading them further down a path of destruction.
The Shining has been adapted into a famous film. Do you think the film captures the essence of King's novel, or are there key differences that change the story's impact?
That's a great question for another discussion. There are definitely some significant differences between the book and the film, and those changes definitely affect how the story is perceived. For example, the film places more emphasis on the visual horror elements, whereas the book focuses more on the psychological torment the family experiences. It's a testament to King's writing that the story remains so powerful in both mediums, even with the changes. But to truly appreciate the nuances of King's vision, I think it's essential to experience the novel.
It's a chilling reminder that our deepest desires can be used against us. and that isolation can create an environment where darkness can thrive. Before we wrap up, I want to hear your final thoughts on The Shining. Megan, what is it about this story that continues to fascinate and terrify readers decades later?
On the enduring terror of The Shining, Stephen King's. The Shining continues to terrify readers because it taps into our deepest fears about the places we inhabit and the darkness that can reside within seemingly ordinary people. The Overlook Hotel, with its history of violence and its ability to corrupt, serves as a reminder that evil can lurk beneath the surface of things. But the story also explores the fragility of human nature, showing how easily our weaknesses can be exploited and how quickly things can unravel when we're isolated and under pressure. It's a chilling reminder that the monsters in horror stories aren't always supernatural. Sometimes they're the people we thought we knew best.
That's a powerful point, Megan. The Shining isn't just a ghost story. It's a story about the fragility of human nature and the destructive potential of unchecked darkness. Thank you both for sharing your insights today. And to our viewers, have you read The Shining? If so, drop a comment below and let us know what you thought. And if you haven't, does it sound like a must-read for you? If you enjoyed today's deep dive, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe for more book deep dives, and share this video with your fellow book lovers. And until next time on Deep Dive with Smart Bookworms, keep reading, keep growing, and we'll see you in the next one.